Yeah, so this talk is something I gave at Spark, 2 weeks ago in Bristol, UK, for our overseas friends. Yeah, I'm not going to pronounce the title because I'm terrible at Italian, but it means beautiful package migration, and also Lucy presented it so well. Yeah, so this talk's going to be about how to migrate a package from a previous version of Umbraco, so like v13 to v14. So, firstly, we're going to say what is Bellissima. So, Bellissima is the new back office, which hopefully we've all heard of. Um, it's trying to future-proof the back office so that we don't have the same kind of problem that we had with the current back office, where with the technology became obsoleted. So AngularJS was no longer supported, and we were stuck with it, and we're still stuck with it for a number of years, even with v13 doing the LTS. So this is the kind of a longer term vision to embrace web technologies, web components, and yeah, so we have more life of the back office. Okay, so there's been some talks already, and some other things happening with v14 in terms of package migration and how to develop packages for Bellissima. So Niels from HQ and Nathan and Sebastian as well have also done some presentations. So this QR code will go to a page that's got a list of links for all these resources. So if you want to read up more, you can do so. You can take a photo of that. I'll post it up at the end anyway, and we can post links in the chat and description and on Slack and things. So also to point out that tomorrow there's another Umbraco lab, where a month ago, I think it was, there was an Umbraco lab that started to migrate a package from v13 to 14. It was the Google Maps property editor, and tomorrow's one at I think 12:30 UK time is going to be to continue that migration. So join that if you are free tomorrow, UK lunchtime or European time. Okay. Also, Kevin Jump has been doing some articles as well, but I've given him his own slide because, well, I like to promote Kevin's ventures, even though I'm now employed by Umbraco, and please do buy some deploy licenses. But yeah, you sync all the things as well. Okay. So yeah, I forgot to say, Kevin has done a series of articles on dev.to, and the links are also there. But I think I don't know, there's over like 30 articles to read there. I may be wrong about the number, but yeah. Okay, so what we've got in the new back office is the extensions API, and this is going to be the entry point for all of our packages for the client side. So the crux, well, what we have in the back office now is a file called package manifest, but this is now going to be called Umbraco package.json, and this is to define your package, which can be a series of extensions to extend all sorts of Umbraco. But this is the crux of it. You give it a name, a version, whether you want to allow telemetry, so to speak to Umbraco servers to say these are the packages installed, so we can use that data for other ways to see how packages are being used and whatnot. And then a series of extensions. Okay, so these are all the extensions type. Now you have to squint if you want to read them all, but there's currently 39 extension types, but these are going to be things that are very, very obvious, like a dashboard or a property editor. But then we'd also be covering other things, like you'd be able to add in extra, new sections, or we've got collections or workspaces. There's also some renaming of things as well. So if you remember, like we had a content app. Well, that's not a content app anymore. And no, it's not called context app. It's called a workspace view, because now the main editor where you would edit content is called a workspace. So that's a view of the workspace. So you'd have like content and then info. Yeah, but you can create your own ones, and it's very easy to plug them in. Right. But what you'll start to see as you start to develop packages now for the new back office is you'll have these manifests everywhere. So they will, as far as the eye can see, there will be things that you will just see these little blobs of JSON all over the place that will say define a dashboard or define a property editor. They'll be everywhere. The reason that there's so many of these things is that there's a big shift from obviously to future-proof it, is a big shift from moving from things from the server side over to the client side. So what you're going to get now, well, what you have in the v13 back office is that there may be a bit of an imbalance of things that are defined on the server, things that are defined on the client side. So like, let's say a dashboard or a content app, you can define on the server, but you'd still have to point it to a file on the client side. So there's a bit of a dance that you have to do between this. So now the shift is all client side, and the server knows very little, or knows a little bit less of what the UI is, how that's being defined. Okay, so what you'll see, because these are all based on web components, you will start to see elements everywhere. So every property editor is an element, as in like a web component. Every dashboard is its own web component, and then you will just start to see elements everywhere. You might feel that a bit overwhelmed that there's too many elements, and maybe the browser shouldn't load this many elements, but it's not the case. It can all handle it very well. Okay, the technology that these web components are written in, the core have chosen, well, Umbraco HQ have chosen to use Lit as the framework to build web components. So that's not a framework for a website or a web application. That's a framework to build web components. And you're free to use whatever technology you want to use to build your own web components. So if you want to use React or even Angular, the successor to AngularJS or Vue, you're free to do that. I won't be doing that in this talk, and I've not really seen anybody else try that yet. Because as a package developer who's been doing this for a very long time, I kind of get the best success rate if I stick to what Umbraco Core is doing. So if I stick to Lit, at least I know I can follow examples in the core if I need to do something similar. So for this, I'm going to be showing Lit. Okay, so I got this wrong when I did this at Spark. So what are we going to do today, Brain? Well, we're going to do the same thing that we do every time that we need to migrate a package, and it's going to be my robots txt editor package. So this was a package that I built. It was the first package that I built for Umbraco. And so this is a screenshot of how it used to look. I mean, ish. So originally built for version 3, I think upgraded to version 4. And then when version 7 came out, version 5, we don't really talk about. This is actually a screenshot from version 5. So it actually migrated it over to version 5. And then when Umbraco 6 and 6 came out, it was still this kind of UI. But when 7 came out, it still supported web forms. So that's what this was originally built in, ASP.NET Web Forms. So it still worked on version 7. But when it got around to version 8, it didn't work because the back office went to AngularJS exclusively, and web forms didn't work anymore. So at this point, I wanted to use it as a learning tool, because I learned how to do these things, and I wanted to be able to, others to make packages, and using my first package as an example. So I put out a tweet at the time, because we were allowed to use Twitter back then, saying, 10 years ago, and this was 2019, so 10 years ago, showing my age, I made this robots.txt editor package, made a custom tree, made it like an editor panel. You kind of learn how it all builds up. Does anyone want to do this for version 8? And Emma Burstow said, can I interview for this position? I mean, it's not a paid job, it's open source. And I said, and she never built a package. I said, yes, 100%. So she went away, and there's a couple of other people as well who wanted to get involved. So Lottie, hello Lottie, and Mike Macy wanted to get involved in building this package as well. So we had a chat, various conversations on GitHub on how it should be built and how they wanted to go about building it. And then they went away and built it on weekends and evenings. And then when they needed advice, I kind of gave him a little bit of mentorship and whatnot. And then a while later, I was demoing this at one of our Bristol meetups, and kind of taking all the credit for it, as I do. But they built the package, and by the time we came around to CodeCab in 2019, we hit the release button, and it was released. I can't remember how many NuGet downloads it's had since then. I keep thinking no one's going to use this package. I'm sure it's had over 30,000 downloads on NuGet since this version got released. So it's still being used. But obviously, as we come to version 14, this is not going to work anymore. So we need a migration plan. I've gone all corporate with my slides here. Okay, so the migration plan is that what I'm going to show you today is I'm going to install version 14 beta. It's going to be a video demonstration. It's going to be the old beta. We're on beta 2 now. But the video shows beta 1. We're going to install a .NET RCL project, which means Razor Class Library. It's just a particular type of .NET project to host the files. Details we don't need to worry about. Going to install Vite with lit and TypeScript. These things, it's all a bit of a learning curve for me as well. So we can talk about that as we go through. We're going to then step 4, going to do the big migrate the code, big bang, and then profit, and then we're going to have tea and cake at the end. Okay, so this wants to work. Okay, so the video, here we go. Now, this video was recorded 2 weeks ago for Spark. Now, what I'm going to do is going to install Umbraco. So this is an install Umbraco 14 beta 1 on the command line. So all the command line prompts are going to be on the QR code that I showed at the beginning. Okay, and then I'm going to add a .NET solution for the robots.txt editor. So kind of taking it all from scratch. This command will install Umbraco, create a new version of Umbraco, and I'm going to do some adding the project to the solution, and then I'm going to create a new class library to host the package files. I mean, all this sounds very like long-winded. I mean, it's going to take like a minute to do it all once you know all the commands. But there's obviously ways we can improve this. There were some talking points after Spark where we were saying that it would be good if we just had a command line that said install whatever. And I know there's efforts in the community to kind of do that. So the rest of these commands, they're creating the Umbraco package, they're creating the solution files, creating the Umbraco package source code, and all the test website to go with it as well, and making all the references. Okay, so what I'll have is a side-by-side window of the code and then the browser once we get this up and running. So what I'm going to do now is just install Umbraco in the browser, so it creates the database and the CMS installation. So that should take a moment. Okay. Just a bit of resizing from Lee 2 weeks ago. There we go. Good boy. Right. So whilst that's booting up, so we should see the no node screen in a moment once that's loaded up. So whilst well, I'm just preparing for the next part there. Okay, so Umbraco's now installed. Okay, you can log into the back office, and here we have version 14 beta 1, and we have all of our sections. It's all done. So the next thing for us to do is to make this into a Razor class library. This project that we have, which is I say it's simple. There's no, as far as I know, in Visual Studio, there's no UI to do this, but you have to change this little SDK bit at the top, and also set the path of what you want to serve your web assets from. So that's all of your client side files that the package is gonna use. We're going to add in a reference for Umbraco 14 beta 1. And then next thing I'm going to do is we're going to, well, clear the screen. We're going to move into the folder. I'm trying to remember what happens next in the video. Okay. Right. A bit tidy up. Okay, so the next thing that's going to happen here should be to do the vite command. Right, so we're going to create our vite project, and what this does is give you a command line interface to say what you want the project to be called. So this is basically what the folder is going to be called, and I've called it client, and that's what it's going to be in the thing. And then what language you want, what framework you want to use, which we want to use lit, and what language you want to use. So we'll use TypeScript for this. So once that's installed, once vite's installed, navigate to the client folder, do npm install. That will install everything that vite needs, and TypeScript and lit and whatever else, and then that is ready to go. So, I also need to install a reference to the Umbraco backoffice, which at the moment is this very convoluted thing with this my get reference, which once the release candidate's out, we won't need to do that. He says, or maybe it's the final release, but that takes a little bit longer. So once all that's installed, we can then flip back over to Visual Studio. And what we have is it's a client folder, very, very tiny, can't zoom in. Yes, but what we have is our npm package JSON, which shows our dependencies. We've got some TypeScript configuration and the boilerplate files that Vite comes with. So Vite is still not fully sure what Vite does. It's like it can compile up all of your TypeScript files and bundle them into the most optimized version of the JavaScript. So a few things that we have to do here is when you install Vite, you need to create a Vite config, and this will give you ways of saying what your input files are, like the TypeScript files, and where the output is. So what we have here is that I made the output file to be this app plugins folder. The video's now ahead of me. So once you've got these files in place, you can do an npm run build, and that will build those files into the correct location for Umbraco to be able to pick up. Now, at the moment, we haven't defined any Umbraco package JSON file manifests or anything to say, that this code is a package. So we can add this file in. And here's one I copy and pasted earlier. So this is to say it's a robots.txt editor. It's going to be version 14. I'll just align the numbers. And then here's my extension, which is going to be a dashboard. This is the alias of it, which should be unique across all of the manifests. This is what the name is, and this is the entry point for the JavaScript. So at that point, need to rebuild the Vite needs to rebuild itself so it can output that file to the correct location, but also Umbraco takes a little while to, well, not a little while. Umbraco needs to restart the server to be able to pick up the files that have, these Umbraco package.json files, to know that it's got to read them in and load in all of the manifests. So restart the server, which I was just doing. So when that reloads, we should then get our robots.txt editor, obviously quite small. But the thing is, what's happened here is that this dashboard that I've added in has added it to every single section, because we have. Is it not getting? Yeah. So it's added to every single section. Oh, I didn't get why it didn't load it in. Okay, so there's a little thing with this boilerplate stuff from Vite, is I need to do a default export so it knows what element I'm gonna use. There's little things that will trip you up when you start doing package development, but just keep persevering. Okay, so once that's all loaded up again, should rebuild there. Because I keep going to the command line to do this npm run build, it's a little bit of a pain. So what I have been doing is to add in a watcher to say, just watch for any changes in the JavaScript, and it will and in TypeScript, sorry, and then it will build the JavaScript for me. So it should start doing an auto refresh. Okay, so what we have in our dashboard now is this Vite counter, which was all of the examples. If you were at Code Garden last year, this counter became very, very famous. Okay, but what we want to do is, because this dashboard is now appearing in every single section. Oh no, I'm not doing that yet. I will get to that in a minute. What I'm going to do is get rid of all of the Vite files, because I'm not interested in what that had to come with. I'm going to create my new dashboard from scratch. So I'm going to create a file. It's called dashboard TS for TypeScript. And then I'm going to copy and paste something in from earlier. So this is a boilerplate web components. So it doesn't. Oh, I need to make sure I update my other references. Thank you, Lee, from 2 weeks ago. Good thinking. Okay, so I can paste in my boilerplate web component. Pretty please. Okay, so this currently does nothing. It just has a method to render, and then a bit for CSS to what any styles you wanna add to that. Okay. Now what I had to do here, because I had the watcher running and I'd made a change to my Umbraco package.json, I had to stop doing the watcher because I need to restart the server to get that to recognize that I'm making little changes to the package manifest. Okay, so we can rerun all that. And what we have is my new dashboard, which is just empty and does nothing because I haven't literally put anything in there. But it appears in every single section, which was what I was mentioning earlier. So what we need to do is to make it just appear in the one section that we want, which is going to be the settings section. And what we have for all of the manifests are conditions. So you can set conditions on these dashboards to say, I only want it to show in a particular section. So if it's the section alias is settings, then only show in settings. And you can add as many of these conditions as you like to say in a particular kind of scenario that's what will be shown. Also, you can see that I haven't added any weighting. Well, I mean, I have now, but there wasn't any weighting. So it was right down at the end, which is not what I wanted. So I wanted to be able to have it first. So I give it a high weighting to say, this is important. I want it to be shown first. So if I restart the server, again, because I'm making changes to this file, and I'm sure there's some hot reload thing you can do, or there's some nicer dev experience, but that's I'm still learning as we're going along as well. So we have the robots.txt editor showing in the settings section as the first dashboard. So we've got our kind of our good starting point for that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take the contents of from the old package, which is the AngularJS, HTML, the controller, and I've got an API controller as well, the C#. But if I take the markup, oh, everything disappeared. If I take the markup and I copy and paste that into the web component as is, obviously it's not going to work, but I start to de-angularify it and litify it. I don't know, litification. I don't know what kind of words we'll use for these, but I can start to get rid of stuff and swap them out for lit, either directives or for other better ways of doing this. So where we had a separate controller and JavaScript control in AngularJS, if we had a separate JavaScript controller and we had a separate HTML file, now in web components, everything's together in the one file, which is still taking me a little bit of time to get used to, but I'm slowly getting there. Slowly, enjoying it. So what we can do when we start to try to swap over from the old Angular Umbraco backoffice Angular components is to use the new UUI library to bring things in. So trying to find what equivalent components there are. So for like this load indicator, it's now UUI loader. And then in using lit, I can then use this rather than do like if statements. You can do whatever JavaScript you like, but rather than doing the if statements, I use this when directive, which comes with lit to say, oh, when something's loading, do render this markup, or when it's not loading, then do nothing. And I can copy and paste some of that stuff in there. Let me I'll set the loading state, and then I'll put that markup in. So I can get rid of the old one. And then I've set the loading state to true, and that if I add all these things in, set the load state to true, and when that reloads, I get this little loading indicator at the top. So that's using the UUI library instead of the old one, which doesn't exist in the new back office. And obviously all of the markup is still below there. So I would need another way to, well, I'm going to add in some extra markup to kind of show you that you can add whatever styles you are. So I would like that loading bar to be centered on the page. So if I add a div with a class called container, and I can add in a CSS rule that will give it a flex box, then it will, when it reloads, it will load in. Oh, I'm changing the loading state. You could have showed that, Lee. Come on. Okay. So yeah, so what this is going to do now is just add in like the alternative loading state. And in hindsight, I could have done it in one, when condition, but I'm still learning, still learning this when I did the video. So yeah, you can optimize this as much as you need to then. It's also worth noting that the else condition where you say nothing is conditional as well. You don't have to actually add that. You can just say when loading and then add in whatever markup you want and just leave it as that. Okay, so some of the other things that have changed, I've just quickly skipped past it, which is we had like an old directive called UMB box. We've now got UUI box, which has prettied up a few things. We don't need to have a separate headline. We've now got a headline attribute in there. And then there are some other things that I need to be able to show and hide inside of that box, which is to say if this robots.txt file exists on the server or not, then do one thing, and if it does exist, then don't show the error. So what I'm going to do is add a bunch of fields into the web component to be able to show these. This next line is for just like information about robots.txt. I've got some error handling here. So this is when it eventually does go off to the server will parse the robots.txt file. And if there's any errors inside of there, then it will come back with those errors and list them out. So to do that, I've taken a copy of that markup. There's certain stylings that maybe in the back office, the new back office, we got to figure out some classes and whatnot, but I'd be able to loop over them. So where we had like the old AngularJS ng repeat in lit, we have a repeat directive that we can use to go over the errors and then list out what the errors are there. Okay. The next bits of markup that I need to update of the actual robots.txt editor itself. So it's in the old back office, it's using the ACE editor, which is the code editor. In the new back office, we've got the Monaco editor, which is the same kind of underlying what Visual Studio Code uses. I'm not going to plug that in for this. I'm just going to use the UUI text area because I've only got less than an hour, and we can fill in some extra things. So the save button had some a check on there because if the file didn't exist, then it would say create the new robots.txt, and if it did exist, it would say update it instead. So I can fill in all of these extra fields that are needed in the web component and wire up the events for the buttons and also the event on the text box to check when things have been updated, so I can capture the value. So these are obviously I'm copy and pasting things in quite quick, but hopefully it makes sense. There's one thing I'm using Visual Studio, like full fat, but if you use Visual VS Code, the IntelliSense is a little bit better for importing modules. Because it's all kind of running Node and TypeScript engines in the background continuously. So I get a better experience now from working on the core in Visual Studio Code than I do from Visual Studio. But I will stick with Visual Studio because we still need to do some C#. Okay, so with that loaded in, there was an error in the beta. So hopefully that's been fixed in beta 2. Okay, so it's still not loaded there. We're getting there. We're not there. Oh yes, I've got a little JavaScript there. Okay, so I'm running my watcher, and for some reason it doesn't work there. But now it's booted in, and I've had to resave the file, and the watcher has kicked in. So because I have the loading state to true, just the loader shows. So I need to be able to hook into like an initialize event that will check if this has been loaded in or not. So at this point, so I'm only going to focus on the client side stuff for now. I'll wire up the server side part in a few minutes. So what we're saying is that once this is loaded in and initialized, we're going to just set some default things. Oh, Copilot wants to get ahead of itself. Okay. So hopefully if I save that and reload, no, not yet. Okay. So what we can see there is that that's loaded in. The loading bar is gone. It starts to show the robots.txt. The padding is around the box isn't quite right, so we can add in some padding around that. So here's a bit I made earlier to add in a bit of just nicer UI for that kind of look and feel. So now it looks like that. So I've added the background for the alert box and whatnot. Okay, so we can actually see that I've still got the old AngularJS for the errors there. I forgot to take that out. So if I reload that, now this is what it looks like. So it says doesn't have a file on the server because it's obviously only on the client side set to false, but you can start to enter the value and be able to press that. One of the other things here that we're doing is that the new back office or Bellissima has some CSS styles that you can import to just make things a little bit nicer. So what this one does, the UMB text styles, what that does is to yeah. So this is what I was meaning about Visual Studio not liking all of the IntelliSense isn't quite there. Okay, so then that resaves. So what this UMB text styles does is just kind of make the text and the links a little bit nicer. So it creates like a consistency in the back office. So if you want to go for the same look and feel then as the rest of the core, then you can use those things. Okay, so this text box has got some kind of auto height, so we can use that. Obviously, I click the button, it does nothing. But in terms of UI, what we'd like it to do is, if you click the button, we'd like to stop it, Copilot. I'm not ready yet. What we'd like to do is when you do click the button, show up the little notification at the bottom, like the toast pop-up that says, success or failure. So to do that, we have lots of context. I should have made another slide saying context everywhere. So the Umbraco core or the back office comes with a notification context, which is the little toast pop-up. So you can consume context in your components. So what I'm doing here is consuming the context of the notification, which will go get the notification kind of controller, and then I'll be able to assign it and use it inside the in my events. So here I'm going to say if when I press the button, if it's successful, then show a success notification, and if it's not, then show the error. So here's a bit I made earlier. So what this is, has got some options to say what the headline of the toast is and what the message is going to be and what's the look and feel of it. So there's going to be a positive look and feel, and if it was an error, it will be a danger look and feel. So you can see I press the button to create it, and it says successfully created, and this will then show the error. Okay. Yeah, like so. Okay, so now we're at this point. Try to remember what the next bit is. Now we're at this point, we need to do the server stuff, I believe. Where are we? Okay, so what I'm going to do is create the server-side API controller. So I'm going to create a folder. So this is in the same project. So it's going to, keep all our code together. I'm going to create a controller called robots.txt editor API controller. It's a bit of a mouthful. And I will paste in one I made earlier because obviously we don't have time to go through it line by line. But what it does is it has two endpoints, one to get the robots.txt file and then one to save the robots.txt file. What you're seeing now is I'm just going to add in some kind of boilerplate for the models that we're going to use. So there's the what gets sent from the server, or what gets sent from the client over to the server, and then what gets sent back. Like the response would contain errors and things like that, but the request object would only contain the file contents and yeah. So create those in, copy and paste them in. Okay, so we have those endpoints. So the other thing we have with the new back office, and if you want to follow kind of the same practices as the Umbraco core. Oh, okay. Yeah, so of course, yeah, I forgot what I was talking about. Some logic in the controllers where it's going to do the save and the get, and also yeah, the bits of validation as well. So this is pretty much just copy and pasted from the old version. Obviously, there's some new web API things that I've had to add in for the different attributes for the methods. So yeah, kind of slowly getting ahead of myself. But these are going to be used for Swagger. So Swagger is, I don't know how to best describe it. It's kind of relatively new for me. I know there's quite a lot of people who've been using this for years, but it's a way to describe the APIs and how clients should interact with those APIs. So what I'm going to do is add this to Swagger. So you don't necessarily have to do this, but I'm going to add this to Swagger and I'm going to copy and paste something in to say, Swagger, generate these documents for this new API that I've created. I'm pretty sure someone could explain that better than I can. But just going through all the paces of migrating your own package, and these will all be the things. If you don't know this, yeah, they may be pain points. Okay, so I've added in those things. If we go on, that's rebuilt. If we go on the back office and we go to Umbraco/Swagger, we should get a list of all of the APIs that we've got. So we've got the Umbraco delivery API and the management API and the newly created robots.txt editor management API. So I've got my two endpoints, the get and the save. And I'm going to authorize this because we don't want anyone to call these from the front end. We just want it to be from the back end of the back office. So what we can see when I've called one of those just to run the test is I get back the data. It says the file doesn't exist, but here's the boilerplate contents of the robots.txt editor file. Okay, so now we have Swagger or Open API. We can generate our client side resources or services from the Swagger API or Swagger definitions. So what this line is in the command line is to install the Open API TypeScript generator, and this is what gets used in the core. So again, as a package developer, I'm following the same kind of practice of doing what the core does. You don't have to, but I am. So I've installed that dependency, and then added in another line which I pretty much copied from the Umbraco core to say generate this robots.txt API services from into TypeScript. So I run that code, which I'm gonna have to rewind to see, and that's created all of the endpoints. So in TypeScript, all the bindings, so I can be able to make those requests to the server and just to ease the code. Okay. Right, yes, let's get back to wiring these last bits up. Okay, so back in our dashboard, let's close up some files. Okay, so what we have now is that we can now we've created the backend API and we created the bindings for it. We can now interact with it from here. Umbraco core comes with a beautiful helper called try, execute, and notify. And what this does is it handles all of the requests and all of the errors. So if you get any errors coming back from the server, it will handle it and it will put it in the little red, toast bubble that comes up on the side. So rather than you just get an error in the console, your DevTools console, it will give a kind of a friendly. Well, errors aren't friendly, but yeah, it will give you a friendlier error. Yeah, so to do that, you would make a call like this, where you say you want to use the resource of our robots.txt management API. I hate the fact that that's a super long method name. I'm told there are ways of fixing that, but for now in the video, yeah, that's the way it is. So that's going to go off to the server when it's being initialized, get the contents of this robots.txt file from the root of your website, and then check if it exists and load in the contents. So at this point, oh, something's not quite right there. So at this point, it should, what's happening with the file contents? Am I getting, we can see here in the network, tab if it's coming through. So that's not quite loading it in. And why wouldn't that be loading it in? I'm trying to remember what I did 2 weeks ago. Okay, cool. Now it's loaded in. Wow. Right. So now this is saying that on the server, robots.txt file doesn't exist, and it's got some boilerplate, the robots.txt file for you to use. Okay, so that's only loaded that in. I've not wired up the click button yet, but that will be next. So what we can copy and paste some in from earlier. What we can do then is when the button is clicked, we can make a call to the server to say, "Oh, put the contents to the API," and that will save the file on the server. So we can pass through all of that data. And then when it comes back with the response, we can say whether it's been a success or not, and then we can wire up the errors that we've got. So those little bits I was doing then are just little TypeScript things I need to just to wire up, make sure that they're the right type, like a line number, or what the error is a string. Okay, so now that's wired up. I can press the button and it will say it's been saved, and I can see in my DevTools the get is there and the save is there, and it can come back saying whether it has been successful or not, and there's no error messages. So there we go. But it didn't refresh here, and AngularJS will give you all of these extra little things, which Lit can do, but you need to be able to update the state in various points. So what I really need to do there is that when I hit save, I can say, yeah, oh, the file does exist at that point. So it's gonna, yeah, well, I think I've already created the file now, so that's a bit of a misleading thing. But just to prove that the errors come through as well now, it's this: if I put something into the robots.txt file which shouldn't exist, like a keyword of fail is invalid in robots.txt, that validation is now kicking in on the server, returning it saying, oh, there's errors here, and that's the UI that will show up. But again, it didn't change it. And these are all the little things that you're going to have to pick up on when you start doing the UI updates, is that you want to reset the errors at those points. Am I at the end? I'm at the end of the video. Yeah. So yeah, you want to be able to reset the errors, and then that's okay. So yeah. So but what we have ultimately within half an hour is we've migrated a package over to v14, and that would be working. So yes, I shall go next. So okay. So that's the robots.txt editor. Yeah, a lot of pain points that I've had to obviously overcome within that half hour, but it's manageable, and it's all, hopefully, once you've got past the initial setup of doing the Visual Studio project and Vite and TypeScript and everything being installed, the workflow of being able to edit your web component and to be reloaded in the browser, and you can see things in a quicker time is, I don't know, I find it quite a nice workflow. Okay, so there's all of the QR code for all of the links. I'll share the links in the Slack channel, because I can't remember what it is. Take a photo. And yes, thank you very much. That's been me. And I shall exit out of this somehow and stop sharing.
Oh, thank you, Lee. That was a great run through. Let's have a round of applause for Lee.
Thank you.
Very good. Right, so we've had quite a few questions in the chat, so I'm going to hand over to my lovely assistant, not Debbie McGee, Sebastian Janssen.
Hello. Well, so Carl has offered to cook for everyone, so you have about 20 minutes to get there. Hurry up. And afterwards we'll have tea and cake at Lee's, apparently. So all good.
Yeah, carrot cake.
Carrot cake. Ooh, my favorite. All right. Speaking of Carl, he also had a serious question. You showed a slide earlier, early on, with many terms on it, 37 of them, I think. Do we have any documentation for what is a workspace? What is a whatever? What are all these things?
It's a really good question. Yeah. No, I don't think there is documentation for everything, because yeah, new extension points, because it's so easy to add a new extension point as well. It's not, yeah, everything's not been documented yet. So the big ones, obviously, like dashboard and property editor. The documentation website has got information with that, with the latest of that, and then there's an ongoing effort to document as much as we can. But there may be some things in the, like, I can't think of one of the lesser known manifests that you may not need to document yet because no one's really going to use it yet. But yeah, in due course, I hope it will all be documented. Yes.
Good answer. Yes, there will be. Done.
Yes.
Lars has a question about when you were doing the dashboard setup in the package JSON file, you gave it some conditions to show. Can we make custom condition matches as well?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So that's another like entry point as well, to have a condition. So you can create your own conditions, which again, I didn't really touch on it too much, but I showed the notification context, and you can, with your conditions, you can import other contexts to check for various scenarios that you may have. Some of those may not always work. If you were trying to check something for with like a document type and you're inside a media type, the wrong thing may appear. But yeah, on a whole, you can create your own conditions.
Yeah. Excellent. Then we had a few questions from Marcus. One of them has been answered by Jason. I think, what's up with all the hashes and the underscores?
Oh, yes. Yes. This is me learning. So I mean, as it may become very apparent, I'm not a front ender, and I would not claim to be like, the best front ender in the world. I have no idea. I'm learning as I go along. So the hash means it's a private field inside your class, which means that nothing else can access that. And like if you saw an underscore and it said private and underscore, it's like a fake private,
which field says Jason.
But what that means is that lit can use it to do things. So it's like a kind of semi-private. Yeah, because lit can't access private fields because they are like super private.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's good. Next question. You mentioned workspaces and workspace views. Implementing a workspace requires his repository, store, and so on. There's also section view. How should we think about when we use what? What's the primary benefit of a workspace?
I don't know. This is why I need fellow members of the front end team to answer these ones. It's going to be, if you had like a repository that had entities. So let's take, for example, like something that's new in Umbraco, like the webhooks. So you would have we call it a workspace for the webhooks. So the webhooks menu item is inside the settings section, and then the workspace would be how you would work with webhooks, and then the workspace views is once you drill down into these that's the whole UI is the workspace view. So you'd have your workspace and you have your workspace view, but you could have multiple ones if you needed. Don't know if that was the best way to describe that part. Who knows?
I think the short answer is we'll get back to you on that.
We'll get back to you.
Cool. And another one from Marcus is server-side parts. In v14 we had plugin controller and Umbraco backoffice JSON controller, and it would give you specific access to things as well.
Yeah.
How does that work in v14?
I'm still exploring it myself. But what I do know is that if you inherit from the cores management API based controller, then you will get a lot of these things. So like it will reuse the same like token of the front end for doing authentication or authorization. I can't remember which term's the best there. But there'll be other things I can't remember, I don't know exactly, but there'll be other things in that base class you'd be able to leverage. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I can't think of, it might be like current user or something. There may be things that you can use. But I'm still exploring that myself. So there's probably a wealth of things you can do, but I still don't know yet.
Yeah, from my experimenting, I've been told that we should just just in air quotes, just use whatever regular MVC stuff is, and annotate it with what do you call these things? Is it
Angles?
Yeah, but on top of a class.
Attributes.
Attributes.
Oh, attributes.
That are specific to Umbraco. Yeah, it was angle brackets. Oh, it was actually
braces, square brackets. Yeah.
Square brackets. Yeah, whatever.
No, braces. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Naming is hard.
Yeah.
So a bit of default.NET and a bit of whatever we give you as base classes should be there. Oh, there we go. Dan Booth. Interesting question. Why should I do all of this? What's the incentives for back-end developers who make free packages to learn all this? Because it looks like a big rewrite, and that is a very valid question.
You probably know the answer.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, why do this? Why do it at all? Why do it in the first place? Yeah, for learning, for sharing, for yeah, I don't know. It's what the question kind of is like, why do open source in the first place, I guess. So
no, it's more why would he do this? Of course he has a couple of quite large packages that will need a bit of a rewrite.
Yes, it is a lot of work to rewrite this stuff. But hopefully this is like the kind of the future proofing where it's not going to change in the next 10, 15 years. I think that's the kind of the longevity of it.
What I was thinking as well. This is mostly just JavaScript in air quotes, and it is future proof. It is not something that will. Well, you never know what happens in browsers, but hopefully not. It won't change too much in the next 10 years.
If we're doing any customization of the back office in v14 onwards, we're going to have to do it this way, right?
That is also true. So
it's not just package developers who are going to have to do it this way. It's people who want to extend the back office from version 14 onwards. Yeah. We've said goodbye to AngularJS. This is what we need to learn. So it's the technical debt. I can't remember quite how many lines of code being removed, but it's a very exciting number, isn't it? And I've heard Lee, you say on several occasions, it's great because I don't have to hack my way to achieve stuff.
Yeah.
So we are rewriting, but we're ending up with getting good implementations rather than all the stuff that we've hacked our way into the back office and achieved, but not in a nice way, and that it keeps breaking when things change in Umbraco.
And I'll repeat what or I'll amplify what Marcus is saying here. It's quite overwhelming when you get started first, especially if you have no experience with any of these things to begin with. But the more I'm learning, and I'm learning very slowly, by the way. It's been 3-4 weeks since I did my last stint on this, and now I'm seeing this again. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember some of this. The more I'm learning, the more it also seems to make sense to me. So it doesn't seem as hard as I thought in the beginning. I'll probably run into some things again, but we'll get there together. I think that was all the questions. I didn't quite get maybe is Carl still here? If you want to unmute any old developers getting flashbacks of early server-side dev, please enlighten us.
Yeah, it actually looks completely like JavaScript and ASP 3.0.
Okay. I skipped that version.
Kyle did have a question following on from Dan's. Are there any other ways of implementing packages? Asking also as a back-end dev. I've heard people say lots of options, but not seen any examples.
As in, what are the like front-end frameworks, or are we talking back-end? Yeah, front-end framework. I've not, like I was saying earlier, I've not seen anything in the wild. But at the end of the day, once you've however you build these things in terms of your like Visual Studio projects, it's gonna create some JavaScript, and that JavaScript is going to be consumed by the back office. So however you create your JavaScript is up to you. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how all of these kind of nice lit things that we have in for the web components, like consuming context and other helper methods, would work. They should work because it, again, should be in quotes just JavaScript. I don't want to say that, but yes. Yeah, don't use the word just. It is JavaScript. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know if that helps answer the question.
Yep, I think
Yeah.
I don't know if it answers the question, but
yeah.
that's
I mean,
probably
I just as I've been doing packages for what is now feels like a lifetime, nearly 20 years, nearly 20 years. Wow. Yeah, it's just follow the core, and you can't kind of go wrong. Because that, if you want to find examples to use, unless you've got you're dead set against using lit. I mean, I've only been learning it in the last 2-3 months, so yeah, it's all still fairly
follow
new
the
to me.
core, and we've also just or Nathan has just open sourced all of the code, the front end code for workflow. So you can learn from that. And you know what, this is literally my whole career has been copy pasting from the internet, so thank you all for open sourcing your stuff, and thanks GeoCities for making view source work. Yeah, that's how I roll, and usually you can get pretty far with that. I think that was all the questions for today.
Big thanks to Mr. Kelleher for redoing his talk. We appreciate it very much. And thank you for Lassie Seb, who've assisted in this whole session. So
I just literally opened the door, but sure. And see everyone at Code Garden if you can make it, I guess, because the next MVP Connect's after Code Garden, right, Lucy?
It is, yes.
Cool.
That's right. So hopefully we'll see you all in person soon.
Cool. Thanks all.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.